A side, B side, what side are you on?
What is going on? It's another episode of A Side, B Side podcast. What's up, Adam?
Not too much, Brooke. How are you? Happy holidays and all that jazz.
Happy holidays. So I'm coming off of a month of all Christmas music at work, and I thought I would be like, ugh, but actually I've kind of gotten like to where I'm like enjoying it.
Oh wow! So the on the station, you guys played nothing but Christmas music.
Yep, all Christmas music since Thanksgiving.
And did that ever happen at your previous place?
No. So
I didn't think so.
At the previous place, we didn't go all Christmas until like Christmas Eve. You know, we throw in a Christmas song here or there, but it didn't go all Christmas until Christmas Eve.
Yeah, it wasn't nonstop.
Yeah, it wasn't nonstop, but this has been 24/7 Christmas music since Thanksgiving. And I really was like, oh my God, I'm gonna poke my ears out. But I'm actually to the point where I'm like, I'm not bothered by it at all.
Now, was it all, because you're on a more like a adult contemporary, like modern music style,
right?
Was it all that style, or did you have like Bing Crosby in there, or
Bing Crosby, some Frank Sinatra, Tony Dean Martin, Tony Bennett, Elvis, Nat King Cole, and then some others, but it's mostly like the contemporary. Of course, you got Mariah Carey, some Celine.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is it just like Mariah Carey and like the New Kids, Backstreet Boys Christmas albums, just nonstop?
No, so it's actually been pretty like classical, Jackson 5, some Stevie Wonder. So it's been a really good variety and mixture. So I think that's probably why I haven't, gotten sick of it. It's a little Elmo and Patsy, Grandma Got Run Over.
Of course. Did you play the Charlie Brown Christmas?
Yep, Charlie Brown Christmas. Also, what's the donkey one? I don't think I'd heard it before, but it's something donkey. And it's a
like Shredded Donkey, or
no, it's something donkey. It's a Christmas song, but I can't think of it. But it's oh my goodness.
Well, we'll have to find it and put it on the website.
It's Dominic the Donkey.
Dominic the Donkey. Mm-hmm. So this is like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer updated for donkeys.
Not really, but okay, yeah.
All right. I have successfully avoided most Christmas music.
Okay.
Because I, have not listened to any at home, and my work is not playing Christmas music, and I do not have a car, so I'm not listening to the radio. I heard like a few Christmas songs when I went to the mall like a month ago, like it was like mid-November, but I have successfully avoided it. And I don't know, people do the Wham challenge. Have you heard of that?
No, what is that?
It's definitely something that happens on Twitter, but you have to post when you hear Last Christmas by Wham, and it's like the last person to make it the whole season without hearing it wins. Which, I mean, I think I've done very well by default, just because I haven't been anywhere where I've heard much Christmas music, but I haven't heard it at all. But after years of working in malls and in restaurants which played Christmas music, I do not miss it. So I'm impressed that you are not burnt out by this point.
No, I'm not. I'm actually pretty impressed myself, because today was today was our last day on air, and then tomorrow, of course, and Christmas Day
for the holiday season.
Right, for the holiday season. Yes, sorry, yes, for the holiday season, we're off tomorrow and Christmas, which is I'm grateful for.
That's cool.
So so I'm not going to be actively in the studio listening to the Christmas music, and I was kind of like, oh, it's my last day listening. Darn.
Yeah, a little bittersweet. Yeah, it's crazy. We're recording this on the 23rd,
mm-hmm.
So Christmas Eve.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of blown me away that we're like 1 week away from it being 2022.
I know. And can I just tell you, it's 59 degrees here right now today.
Oh, well, yeah. Here we are in a heat wave as well up in Minnesota at 37. The sun is out. It's the hottest it's been in like a week, and hottest it will be for like 2 weeks. So I got a nice walk in with the pup and everything's like mushy and melting and the sun's out. So enjoy it while we can.
Exactly. So you finished Hawkeye.
I finished Hawkeye. I very much enjoyed it. I was debating like holding off until like Christmas Day to watch it because I thought that might be a nice little present. But then last night I just caved. I have been trying this new thing because as you know, Brooke, I'm not a very good sleeper. So I've been trying this whole like nighttime routine. And so I have this melatonin bath balm bubble bath stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a sleep formula and it's supposed to help you fall asleep. So I did a big old bath with that, and I realized as a surprise to no one that I have a subscription to Audible books, and I had an email tell me that I had a bunch of credits that were going to expire because I hadn't been using them. So I went and downloaded a bunch of audiobooks, and I listened to the first 25 minutes of Matthew McConaughey's book, memoir, self-help.
You will not believe this. Literally today or earlier this morning, my boss, like the big boss at work, was telling me about this book.
Yeah, Greenlight.
Yes.
Yeah. So I listened to the first half an hour of that, and it's interesting. I don't know. He's a very interesting guy. I am not a positive person, and he seems like way too positive sometimes. So I'm not sure how it's going to go, but I was listening to it. He's got a very soothing voice. It's a very positive listen. I did the whole bath thing. I'm like, I'm going to fall asleep. This is great. And then I just got ready for bed and just laid there, stared at the ceiling, and I'm like, no, I'm going to watch Hawkeye. And I'm very glad I did because it was very enjoyable. Tied up a lot of stuff. Made me really interested to see where they go with some of the characters. I'm still not sure that Echo really deserves her own series.
Mm-hmm.
There are like at least 3 other characters or 3 other stories in this that I would rather see before more of hers, but we'll see. They'll probably surprise me.
Yeah.
But I thought it was very, very well done.
That's what they're good at. Speaking of Marvel, we both have seen the new Spider-Man.
Yes, which was outstanding. You've already seen it twice.
I have seen it
I'm
twice.
slacking.
I feel like it is my favorite Spider-Man.
I was thinking about that. I really love Far From Home.
It was good. Don't get me.
Yeah.
Tom Holland as Spider-Man has really impressed me.
Yeah, and I would say like the very first Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire will always have a like big place in my heart.
Mm-hmm.
I never really liked the Andrew Garfield ones, and I did not like the Tobey Maguire ones. Got weird. Like the third one's just bad.
Yeah.
And so I was a little I've been impressed that Tom Holland's Spider-Man has never gotten like it's never felt like it got silly or jumped the shark. It's been good. And I never thought I would think that you could do another 3 movies of Spider-Man and it wouldn't go awry. But I mean, Tom Holland's been in what, like 5-6 movies now?
Yeah.
As Spider-Man. And it doesn't feel like we've barely scratched the surface of his story. So it's partly because he's been a supporting character in like 3 of the 6, but still it's pretty exciting that there's a lot of good stuff going on.
Yeah, I was very impressed. No spoilers because you need to experience this for yourself. It's good. It's, everybody was kind of raving on it and I'm like, oh, blah, it's going to be good. Whatever.
Yeah.
And then I saw it and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. The 3rd biggest weekend opening of all time.
Yeah.
Not post COVID, the 3rd biggest
of
ever.
All time. Yeah.
So like, even like
Second
imagine
biggest for December of all time.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because there was like The Force Awakens,
Mm-hmm.
and you think about how many screens and how many movie theaters were open when The Force Awakens came out just 6 years ago.
Right.
I mean, I can think of at least 5 movie theaters here in the Twin Cities that are not even around anymore. So I mean, the number, the per screen average has to be just through the roof.
Yeah, but it's well worth it. It is long. So if you can go early, that's better.
Yeah.
The earlier, the better in the day.
Yeah. I went at like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. So I'm going to go and I'm going to go to like a matinee showing for the second time so I can see what I missed because I got sleepy.
Yeah. Well, we are, like you said, it's Christmas Eve. So we're going to try to keep it short because everybody's traveling. Everybody's trying to see family. And, well, we know we can ramble. So, all right. So it's episode 74. That means you get to go first.
In the spirit of the holiday, usually on the A side, we talk about movies or like maybe 3 times in 3 episodes, we've talked about music, but it's usually like movies or TV. But for the Christmas episode, I wanted to do something a little bit different. And I started to look at some of the history and lore of where the story of Santa Claus came from. And as opposed to like diving into a movie or something like that, I actually stumbled upon a mystery about the most famous Christmas poem of all time that I thought we'd talk about today. So, "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" is often considered the most famous, I would assume, or in my opinion, Christmas poem, story, like cultural touchstone. I did not know that behind the story of "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," there is a lot of controversy, and we're not even really sure who wrote it. So "The Night Before Christmas," as it's more commonly known, was actually first published as the title under the title "Account of a Visit from St. Nicholas" in 1823. So almost 200 years ago, like 198 years ago. It was attributed completely anonymously, but it was later attributed to a writer, Clement Clark Moore, who claimed authorship in 1837. It is often considered the best known verses ever written by an American, which is probably not true anymore because with modern music, I feel like more people have heard modern music than some of these poems. But if we go strictly with poetry, that will probably be the case. But the controversy behind the poem actually has two schools of thought, and it like reminds me a lot of the people that argue about the works of Shakespeare. Whether he was one guy, if he was a pseudonym for somebody else, if it was collected works of several people, if it was like Marlowe was not Marlowe. Now one of the other guys, I'm doing a horrible job of talking about Shakespeare, but it's widely argued about where the works came from. So there are 2 main schools behind who the author of A Visit from St. Nicholas, or most commonly known as "'Twas the Night Before Christmas." The original poem was published in New York's Troy Sentinel, and it was, again, anonymous at the time. 13 years later, Clement Clark Moore, a professor and poet, was named as the author. The story was that his housekeeper had, without his permission, written down the piece, which he had written and performed for his kids, and then just randomly sent it to the newspaper. And then by 1944, so almost 20 years after it's first published, it was officially included in an anthology of Clement Clark Moore's poetry work. However, there was another family, the family of Henry Livingston Jr., who claimed that their father had been reciting the poem for 15 years before it was published. And that goes all the way back to the early 1800s. So that'd be 1807, 15 years before it was published. So the Livingston family's argument, and weird little note of history, the Livingston line can be traced all the way down to George W. Bush is a descendant of the Livingston line. So
oh, wow.
Weird little, yeah. So the Visit from St. Nicholas is where we've gotten the popular names for Santa's reindeer. And one of the schools of thought that argues for it being a poem by Livingston is that his Dutch background. The reindeer named Donner and Blitzen, as we have come to know them now, were originally recited as Dunder and Bliksem, which are the Dutch words for thunder and lightning. Of course, over time, it's gotten changed slightly to Donner and Blitzen.
Mm-hmm.
According to the proponents of the Livingston hypothesis, this is because of the background of Livingston being Dutch. Moore's proponents claim that it was changed by the original editor of the poem, and he did it just because it looked better in the paper. And Moore changed them back to the original in his published work. Another point for the Livingston family is that a testimony from both Livingston's children and even a neighbor at the time have Henry Livingston telling the tale of St. Nicholas all the way back to 1887. They even claimed to have evidence, which was a dated, handwritten copy of the original poems with revisions and scratch marks all throughout. But in the case of any good mystery, the evidence itself was lost when the house containing the gem was burned down and took their proof with it. So we totally had proof, but it was in the house that burned down, so we can't show it to you. But we totally did have proof.
Yeah.
A professor from Vassar actually then went and analyzed poetry by both Clement Moore and Henry Livingston to see who could have written A Visit from Nicholas. According to the professor, the style of the favorite was completely different, both in structure and in the type of content, than anything else that Moore had ever written. But the scheme matched up with some of Livingston's work. So again, with a great mystery, we don't have definitive proof either way. You could have evidence for both sides.
Mm-hmm.
So we still, to this day, do not know who has it. It's definitely come down to two families and their descendants arguing about it for almost 200 years. And this has probably cost somebody some money, because I'm sure nobody's got the copyright down, because they're constantly fighting over it. And it's been remade a million times over the years. If you want to do more research, there's actually a online wiki, which is a series of collaborative essays and articles from something called wiki.geneseo.edu. So it's from a university, and it is a entire collection of people arguing for one side or the other. So if you want to dive down to it, it is pretty deep. And I think it's one of those things where there's so much information now on both sides that we will never truly know unless somebody gets a time machine. And if you build the time machine, this would be like a complete waste of use of your time machine to go back and figure out
so many other things.
Many other things. But when time travel becomes super, super easy, we'll have to figure this one out, because it is still a completely unresolved conflict. And it makes me a little bit more interested in the poem each time I hear it now, knowing that there are two families almost in a Hatfield and McCoys without the fireworks, fighting over 200 years to find out who is the actual author of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas. And because it is the most famous of Christmas poems, and it is Christmas Eve, and I have gone over a year without being able to do any theater of any kind. To end the A side this week, I'm going to read A Visit from St. Nicholas, which comes from the Random House Book of Poetry for Children.
Hold on, let me get my blanket and get tucked in.
And this one was published in 1983, and it is still attributed to Clement Clark Moore. All right, so this is a version of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas.
Okay.
And Brooke will remember that we had, back in our radio days, one of my favorite things to do was Adam's Poetry Corner.
Yes.
Where I would take lyrics of popular songs and recite them as if they were poetry. So we get to do a little throwback here as well. All right. A Visit from St. Nicholas. 'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mamma in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap. when out on the lawn there arose such a clatter. I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away from the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters, and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave a luster of midday to objects below. When what to my wondering eyes did appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer. With a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment he must be Saint Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen. To the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away, oh. And leaves that before the wild hurricane fly, when they met with an obstacle, mount to the sky, so up to the housetop the coursers they flew, with a sleigh full of toys, and St. Nicholas too. And then in a twinkling I heard on the roof the prancing and pawing of each little hoof. As I drew in my head and was turning around, down the chimney St. Nicholas came with a bound. He was dressed all in fur, from his head to his foot, and his clothes were all tarnished with ashes and soot. A bundle of toys he had flung on his back, and he looked like a peddler just opening his pack. His eyes, how they twinkled, his dimples, how merry, his cheeks were like roses, his nose like a cherry. His droll little mouth was drawn up like a bow, and the beard on his chin was white as the snow. The stump of a pipe he held in his teeth, and the smoke, it encircled his head like a wreath. He had a broad face and a round little belly that shook when he laughed like a bowl full of jelly. He was chubby and plump, a right jolly old elf, and I laughed when I saw him in spite of myself. A wink of his eye and a twist of his head soon gave me to know I had nothing to dread. He spoke not a word, but went straight to his work, and filled all the stockings, then turned with a jerk, and lay his finger aside his nose, and giving a nod, up the chimney he rose. He sprang to his sleigh, his team gave a whistle, and away they all flew, like the down of a thistle. But I heard him exclaim, ere he drove out of sight, "Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night." 'Twas the night before Christmas, who we still don't know who wrote it.
But what a recitation that was.
It was fun.
Did you feel like you were back on stage?
I did a little bit. I did. It was very enjoyable. I am like there are little parts of my cold, grinchy heart that are awake again. So that was as much for me as it was for anyone else.
Because Adam truly is a grumpy old man. We had this conversation yesterday. I don't even remember what it was in reference to, but I literally called you the grumpy old man yesterday. I
am, yeah. And I think one of my favorite memes right now is the picture of the Grinch, and the little meme says, "As I grow older, I totally understand why the Grinch just wanted to live alone with his dog."
Seriously, that is so true, though.
Yeah, and I live alone with my dog, so and have avoided all Christmas music for the entire season until
you.
Now, so
you are the Grinch.
I am. I just, am not as green or as tall. I was going to
say, are you wearing green tall today? Because, man.
I am not. No, I avoid green just in case anyone gets too big of an idea that I'm Grinchy. But when the next time you hear "'Twas the Night Before Christmas," just remember that it's being two families are arguing about who wrote it. So that gives me more joy. It may take away a little for you.
All right. So is that the A side?
That is the A side.
So the B side, not, of course, going to be quite as cheery because, well, it's the B side, and I don't typically do cheering.
Yeah, there's not a lot of true crime cheeriness.
No, can't say that.
Yeah, there's not. I was like, hey, this is a fun story about murder.
But it is Christmas related. So I think if you were listening to our podcast last year at Christmas, we did showcase several that happened on Christmas. Well, this one was not included because well, this one happened last Christmas.
Oh, oh no! Now I've got the Last Christmas song in my head. Ah,
Sorry. Yeah, please don't sing it while we're talking about murder.
it's just know that it's in my head and it's playing right now.
So there were the bodies of 5 family members that were found by a relative just after 5 p.m. at their Pope County, Arkansas home last Christmas. It was the bodies of 61-year-old Patricia Patrick, 31-year-old Chiquita Chase, along with 7-year-old Danielle Collins, 10-year-old Lavena Countryman, and 12-year-old Abigail Heflin. So apparently what happened, they were all relatives. Initially, when the story was reported the day after Christmas, they knew that all 5 were relatives, but they weren't quite sure what happened. The evidence was collected at the scene, and it was evident that it was determined to be a murder-suicide, but they didn't know exactly what took place. Well, police have stated, Sheriff Shane Jones, he offered his condolences to the family in a statement. He said, the family and their friends, they're hurt, dismayed, and shocked. They're in shock over the events of this past Christmas Day. He said, while all loss of life is heartbreaking, this situation has been particularly tragic. Anytime children are senselessly taken from someone or from those who love them, the pain is beyond compare. Then you add to that the loss of adults involved, and the pain is unfathomable. After a police investigation, it was determined that 31-year-old Chiquita Chase was the perpetrator of the crime. You see, Chiquita was the mom, and Patricia was her mother, and the 3 children were Chiquita's 3 children. I could not find any true reasoning for this sad, tragic event, but it does look like Chiquita had a record. Not that that is an excuse, but in 2017, she was arrested for shoplifting at a Walmart store in Conway. She was charged in Faulkner County Circuit Court with theft and drug possession. The drug charges were dropped. She pled guilty to the theft charge and was sentenced to 2 years probation. In 2018, she was arrested again after attempting to get into a car in Dover. She's confronted by the vehicle's owner, and she fled away in a 2017 Dodge Journey that had been reported stolen earlier that same day. A town marshal followed her. She wrecked the stolen car, hit a fence, hit another vehicle. And of course, she was taken to jail. But when she was booked, the fingerprint card said Amanda Waters. That was the name of the person who actually owned the vehicle that was stolen.
Oops.
So in that case, she pled guilty to charges of criminal mischief, forgery, and theft by receiving. She received 5 years probation. Drug use was cited in the case of the stolen vehicle. Well, she failed to show up for her drug test. And in that case, Circuit Court Judge Gordon McCain said that she needed a fit and proper parent to have custody of her minor child. So with the judge saying this, he's basically taken custody of her children, and he turned that custody over to her mother, Patricia Patrick. So Lavena, also Abigail, and Danielle all now are in custody of Patricia. They are allowed to visit with Chiquita, but they have to have proper supervision. Eventually, Lavena, her custody is handed over to her father. Again, she's allowed to visit, but she has to be supervised. Mm-hmm. The town that they live in, Atkins, has a population of 3,016. You may have heard of Atkins Pickle Company. It was operated there for more than 50 years before closing down in 2002. It's a really, it's kind of an open, closed case. The only reason we talked about it is because it did happen on Christmas. like I said, there's not been like a note or anything, but it's just a sad case. It happened on Christmas, and
it's tough when there's no obvious like
yeah,
trigger point that happened. Why
just
that day? Why Christmas?
why exactly? The ones that we talked about there's never a good reason. Like
No.
Last year, we talked about the dad that one at a time on Christmas, took his kids out, and it's the holidays are depressing sometimes, for some
really
they can be really hard if you're going through things. The holidays are rough, and you do see an uptick in crime over the holidays. So that's really the only thing we can truly attribute it to, because we don't know. But it is an open closed case, so you don't have to worry about, there's not a perpetrator out there.
No. Well, and it doesn't seem like there was, often you'll talk about the warning signs or the things that we hear consistently, that they had problems as they were kids, or there was head injuries, or there was violence in the home, or this was like the culmination of a series of events progressively getting more and more violent, whereas even her other crimes were were not violent crimes. I mean, theft, and it wasn't like she was getting in fights left and right. So it's hard to rationalize how that something breaks like that.
But that's the story of this unfortunate Christmas that happened in Atkins, Arkansas.
Two very different. Was the night before Christmas.
Very different. But again, it's an open closed case. They know who the perpetrator is. It was the mom, Chiquita. Initially, they knew all of the, they ranged in age from 8 to 61, and they knew they were all related. But initially, when the story first started, they didn't know how they were related. And, of course, after investigation, it was revealed the grandmother, the mother, the children. And it's just sad. It's sad that another relative had to go to the house. It's sad, period. But then it's another relative going to the house, probably walking in with an armful of gifts, ready to celebrate the day with this family, and to walk into that tragedy.
Holidays are tough, folks. Don't just be gentle on yourselves.
Seriously, take some me time. You know what? There is nothing wrong with taking me time. However you choose to do that, whether that's as Adam likes to do, a little retail therapy.
Yeah. I subscribe to some stuff. I forget. It's a fun time.
Then you get the bill like, oh, I do still have that subscription service.
What am I paying for? I mean, with Audible, I don't know how long I've had it. I got an email from Amazon being like, hey, you got to use credits you've been paying for, man, because they're going to disappear. And I was like, I did what now?
I mean, if you've got leftover credits that you want to hand over, I'll take an Audible credit.
Yeah, I'll have to look into it. I don't even know if I'm allowed to gift them. I should probably gift them, because I got plenty. I don't know when I decided I was into audiobooks, but it wasn't recently.
So maybe that's your self-care, is you just subscribe to Audible and then forget.
Subscribe to something and forget. Tis the season of packages showing up, and you're like, wait a second,
when did I? Yeah, that happened to me the other day. A package shows up and I'm like, wait, I love this place, but did I order something? I even went on the website to look at my account. Did I like, maybe I was really tired and I ordered it. I was looking at it, but I don't remember.
Was I sleep shopping?
Was I sleep shopping? But no, thank you to Adam for my very beautiful beanie from Love Your Melon.
It's again, the power of suggestion. I got an email telling me that these were now available, and I was like, oh, I'll get one of those for Brooke. So
it's funny because we had literally just been talking about them, and I was like, maybe I'll get one of these. I don't know.
Yeah. So it was very serendipitous, but be gentle with yourselves this holiday season, and also all of the people delivering packages. Because if you're anything like my family, we have had a hard time with addresses. I sent a bunch of stuff to my parents and sent it to the wrong address. So it arrived at someone else's house in their little retirement community out there, and it's bounced around. And my parents are getting to know their neighbors very well because I keep sending packages to the wrong house. So it's not always UPS or FedEx or the postal service's fault. Sometimes it's just user error.
Oh man, but seriously, whether it's going to the movies or binging a show, sleeping in, I always feel so guilty if I sleep in, and I have to remind myself I don't need to feel guilty. I don't have to get up and do anything. I can
unless you're supposed to be doing the morning show.
Then
you do have to.
Then I do have to get up. But on a weekend or something, I there's times where I'm like, I really should get up and do something, and that's like, do what? Why? So just take it easy on yourself. You don't have to feel guilty if you just want to do nothing someday, or you just want to binge a show, or you just want to sit on the patio and watch the world go by. It's okay.
Yeah. If perhaps self-care for you is liking and subscribing to your favorite podcast on Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, or any of those places, you should do that, and make sure you share, also review, because your podcast will love you for that. So it's a self-care and a gift all at once.
Real smooth.
That's me, Mr. Smooth Grinchy over here.
Oh my goodness. Well, that is the B-side, and like Adam said, of course, excuse me, excuse me, I don't know where that came from. Subscribe, share, send us photos of where you're listening on put us in your story on Instagram. You got Facebook, you got Twitter, website,
A-side, B-side podcast.square.site.
While you're there, you can check out the merch. We also have photos and sources from for both of our sides on the website today as well.
If you want to do a deep dive into the history of 'Twas the Night Before Christmas, you've got all the links, and even get into that essay battle site that I found if you really want to get nerdy.
But anyway, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa. I'm sure there's more that I'm forgetting, and I'm sorry if I am, but
I believe either yesterday or today is the Festivus.
Yes, Festivus for the rest of us.
Yeah, good luck on your airing of grievances. We'll see how it goes. For most of us, that's just Twitter.
Right. But Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. Please be safe. Enjoy your loved ones. Yes, they'll get on your nerves. Drunkle will probably say something stupid, either about politics or religion. Just, let it roll off your shoulders, and have a great holiday. All right, Adam, thanks.
Thank you, Brooke.